Hey guys, how's everyone doing? My name is Tradgik and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be talking about Cyberpunk 2077. Now myself, I'm playing the PS4 version through backwards compatibility on my PlayStation 5, so any of the stuff that I talk about will be based on that version. I also want people to know that supposedly the PC version is held to a much higher standard, much better quality. It's just the console versions that are getting a lot of this crap, so to speak. And I just want to talk about my experiences and my opinions and my genuine, honest thoughts on Cyberpunk 2077 as it sits today. Now, this is a game that a lot of us had expectations for. Myself, I don't think I've been more excited for a game than I was for this. I know, like myself, I've been going crazy the last few weeks in anticipation to finally get my hands on this game after numerous delays. And I always planned on playing it on PS4. Originally, I was going to play it on my base PS4, but I got lucky and the PS5 came out before Cyberpunk did, so got my hands on that, and I've been playing it on that system since launch day. And there's numerous bugs and glitches that you guys have probably already heard about for the console version, and we're going to talk about that. But before we do, there's something that I kind of want to try and explain, and I don't know if I'll do a good job of explaining this, because people are asking me, like, what is my honest opinion of the game? Did the bugs and glitches kind of, like, deter you from liking the game? Are you still having fun playing it? And I was talking to a few people about this, and I want to take a game like Demon Souls, for example. This is a very well-made game, very, very polished for the most part, and something like Demon Souls, especially the remaster, is something that I would call like a flawed masterpiece. It's the type of game where it is an amazing game from start to finish, all the content, the lore, the graphics, the style. There's a lot of really good stuff that goes into that game, but there's often design choices that make it kind of suffer or only cater to specific tastes. Things like the world tendency system and all that stuff in Demon Souls. And I find that there is what I like to call a flawed masterpiece, where there is design choices that they intend to create a certain way that can sometimes withdraw from the experience, but overall it is a fantastic experience that you need to see. That is a flawed masterpiece. But that is not what Cyberpunk 2077 is. Cyberpunk 2077 is what I like to call a broken masterpiece. And the difference between the two is that flawed is designed that way. Well, it's intended by design. Like, what they've done, the problems that you might have with the game were 100% intentional. The broken masterpiece that is Cyberpunk 2077 has so much potential to be a true, honest-to-God masterpiece. One of those games that we will look back on in 5-10 years and think this game is a perfect 10 out of 10, nothing's come close. It has the potential for that, but right now, it's broken, and it needs to be fixed. Now, if this was any developer beyond CD Projekt Red, I would say this is a lost cause. They just wanted a quick buck. They said, fuck it, and they moved on, and they're just going to let it die, whatever. But it's not. This is CD Projekt Red. These are the guys that brought us The Witcher 3. They care tremendously about this project. They do. And you have to keep in mind that during the development of this, not only were they affected by the pandemic, having to work remotely, and having to delay the game consecutive times, upsetting fans, they probably had goals in mind of what they wanted to reach by certain points, and no doubt that they put a lot of emphasis on the PC version beyond the console versions. They were developing for a bunch of different systems, and I'm sure that they have numerous reasons for why the game turned out the way it is. I mean, you can chalk it up to poor management, you can chalk it up to a bunch of different things. The game definitely needed more time in the oven, but overall, we were all getting frustrated. We wanted to get the game in our hands and play it. They wanted to get it out. Investors, no doubt, were pissed off that the game was taking so long. And it definitely needed more time. Now, I'm not searching for excuses for CD Projekt Red to be like, oh yeah, no, it's fine if you deliver a broken product. It's not fine whenever anybody does that. But these people will put in the time and effort to fix it. I have a lot of faith in that. Like I said, if it would be any other developer, I would second guess that, but I know that patches and fixes are most definitely coming. So that's where my thought is on the idea of a broken masterpiece. It is something that within a year's time, this game will probably be, no doubt, 10 out of 10. Because when I'm playing in the game right now, like, when it comes to the moment-to-moment gameplay, story, graphics, that kind of stuff, it's you can always see the potential. Like, the writing is fantastic. The characters are really good. When things are working, it is incredibly well animated. There's all kinds of really cool little details scattered throughout the world. There are some gameplay elements and things that I would like to add and things I would change, and we'll get to that a little later. But for the most part, like, when the game is doing what we expect it to do, it's doing a fantastic job. The only problem is that right now, glitches and bugs get in the way. And I'd like to talk about some of those different glitches and bugs. And we may as well start off with the small stuff. There's tons of graphical tearing. When you grab enemies and things like that, all the textures on their body kind of start flickering in and out of existence. Weird lighting effects here and there. You get just like strange graphical anomalies in the background. A lot of blurred textures, a lot of low-res textures, especially when you're standing face-to-face with something. And I think this is probably just me expecting it to be PS5 quality, even though I'm playing a PS4 version. So maybe my expectations are just a little too high for the particular version I'm playing. But it always seems really weird when you got these things that should very clearly be high definition textures that are just extremely like muddled, or they're really pixelated. You get quite a bit of that throughout the game world. Pop-ins are another thing too. Like the NPCs are like, the streets are quite well populated with NPCs, but like cars are kind of not a rarity, but there's definitely not as much like dense traffic as what you'd expect, especially when you're like out in the Badlands or something like that. Like, you will see trains of cars coming down the highway, but as you get closer they just kind of disappear because they're like clearly a background texture just made to like simulate life in the distance. And it's stuff like that that gets really weird. I know when I was at the Sunset Motel, which was kind of like one of my favorite little areas in the game, things like entire light pole fixtures are missing. You just get like the top of the light post, and the entire post itself is gone. And I thought, oh, well, maybe that's, like maybe they're supposed to be like hovering light posts because it's like, futuristic. But when you get closer, no, you can see the pedestal where it's supposed to be. And it's not supposed to be like that, I can guarantee. Lots of weird stuff like that. Characters cutting each other off. Sometimes you'll get two phone calls at the exact same time, and characters will overlap each other. Things like just pressing the pause button. Sometimes it'll go in and out real quick. There's all kinds of random little small things like that. These things don't exactly like break the game in a way where it's like, okay, well, it's literally unplayable. But it's nuisances that kind of like take you out of the immersion. And that kind of stuff really sucks. Now, there have been a few times where things either failed to activate or just like strange control malfunctions where things just wouldn't work, where I just had to essentially reload a save and that would fix the issue. There was one time where like I tried equipping pants and just no pants would show up on my character. I know some people had problems with like their genitals like literally appearing outside of their like clothing options, things like that. It's really weird little graphical glitches that, well, they would just benefit from essentially a quick fix or like a hot patch, but those kinds of things normally don't break the game. But there is one big glitch that I consistently run into that for most people would say is game breaking. Now for me, again, I'm running on a PS5 using an SSD, and because of that, I don't consider it as much of an issue as it definitely is, because it is a big issue. But for some reason, the game will just randomly crash. And it happens a lot. It's not one of these things where it's like, oh, well, it's once every like 6 hours or 10 hours. No, it's like once every hour, depending on what you're doing. If you're stuck in a scripted quest or something like that, good chance it's not going to happen. If you're, going through your menus and stuff like that, it's probably not going to happen. It happens very specifically, and this is the problem, because it happens during open world traversal. So as you're going through Night City and you're driving from location A to B, there is almost a 50% chance you will crash. And I mean like 100% crash. I guarantee it so often that now I literally, as a tick, every 20-30 feet, I open up my pause menu and I quick save. Now, for me, it's like one of these things where I just kind of learn to live with it, because the rest of the game is really good and entertaining. I'm loving the story, loving the characters, the gameplay is a lot of fun. I'm doing gigs, unlocking cars, getting different clothing options. It really reminds me, like, moment-to-moment gameplay. It reminds me a lot of, like, Fallout meets Grand Theft Auto. That's probably the best way I can describe it. It reminds me a lot of the older Fallouts and all that stuff, like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. And you mix that with GTA, with driving around, and it's fun. It's literally my type of genre. That's the kind of game I love, especially when you like overlay it with like deep RPG and choice making. Yeah, no, it's perfect. But this annoying crash gets to me so bad, because it's like every hour, like when you're free roaming, especially doing gigs and stuff like that. Now, being on PS5, like I said, I have an SSD, so it's one of these things where when I boot up, it only takes a few seconds to get into the actual game. It takes a little bit longer than GTA 5 on PS5. So my thought is, like, if this is happening to people on PS4, I feel genuinely bad, because like reloading a quick save, reloading any kind of file for me is almost instantaneous. But if you were playing on PS4, like a base PS4 or PS4 Pro without an SSD, like, I have no doubt that the load times are probably longer than Grand Theft Auto 5. And everybody knows how long that initial load is for GTA 5. If you have to do this, like, every hour, oh my god, that would be a real pain in the ass. I think that would genuinely frustrate me to the point where I don't want to play anymore. But, like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have a PS5, to have an SSD, and really the load times aren't anything. I just kind of just jump back in, even though it keeps crashing, every couple hours. And yeah, it's inexcusable. It is. This is something that needs to be patched ASAP. And I actually noticed it more frequently after the first patch. And I think what it is it's something like, I could be completely wrong here. I'm not like a games analyst or anything, but I think it's like the game doesn't have enough internal memory to be able to like store everything that's happening or something like that. Like, it's overflooding the cache or something like that, and that's why it's causing it to crash. But I don't know, because it always seems to happen in like the same 6 or 7 parts of town. But that's just my kind of general thought on it. But yeah, I don't know. That's the biggest issue that I keep running into, is this inevitable game crash. And it's just one of these things where I've just learned to live with it, so much so that I just kind of like autosave every 10 steps like I used to back when I used to play Fallout 3 on PS3. It's one of these things where you just kind of get used to it, and you really shouldn't have to, But no doubt they are working on patches to fix all this stuff. Like I said, I have a lot of faith in them. But yeah, when it comes to the rest of the game, what is my thoughts on how the game actually plays? Well, I think I've shared quite a bit of that. Like I said, it's a lot like Fallout meets Grand Theft Auto 5. And I absolutely love it. Like, when the game's not crashing, I absolutely adore the moment-to-moment gameplay. There is a lot of things that I would change, and a lot of things that I would try to implement. Probably the biggest one is, like, I would really like a way to customize your character after the initial starting point. Because once you choose your character, you choose your hairstyle, you choose all that stuff, like, you're locked in for the rest of the game. There's no way to change it. And I think that's kind of dumb, especially when you have something like Ripper Docs in your world's lore, like, that can literally change out body parts. It's like, why can't you go to a hairstylist and get a different haircut? Why can't you do those kinds of things? Like, I always thought maybe when you jump into the game, there would be more hairstyles available to unlock as you go throughout. But no, it's like what you choose in the beginning, that's it. I'm also not a fan of things being locked behind gender. There's like certain character dialogue options and romance options and stuff like that that are all locked behind your character's gender, and I understand the concept, it's just like real life. People have preferences and things like that, but I'm not a fan of that. I think that for the most part it should have been accessible to almost anybody, but I understand why they did it. I'm just not a fan of it. There's also like just a few other smaller things. Like, I think the game should definitely clarify a lot more of the different mechanics that are involved in the game, because there's things that I'm learning now only probably about 20-30 hours in, and it's just from playing the game, getting the experience, and like trial and error. I know in the beginning I had a lot of problems with stealth. That was a big issue, but then when I started to realize that like the game is designed around being able to like use your quick hacks and do things like that, once I started to get a real good grip on that and realized that, like, things like cameras can be well hidden, they can see you instantly. It's one of these things where it's like it just felt different than most stealth games. And normally I'm a stealth gamer. I grew up on Metal Gear, you know, like I did, and it felt weird in the beginning, but then as I got further in, now it's no problem. It's just like every other game. But overall, yeah, like I said, what is my genuine honest opinion on Cyberpunk 2077? And I think it's the idea that it is a broken masterpiece. It is a game that holds so much potential. It has so much awe in it. Like, as you're going through the city, like Night City itself is something you just have to see, provided the game doesn't crash. You really do have to see this city because it's incredible driving around this thing, and like the design choices and how dense the actual design of the city streets are, like the way trash is populated around it, the way that like all the neon lights light up, and just the major like skyscrapers and all that stuff in the distance. Like Night City is a sight to behold. It steals the show. But these bug fixes need to happen because like it is so broken. And I think that's what pains me most, because the way the game is structured right now, it's like, am I having fun? Yeah, I'm having fun nonstop, but I'm constantly being dragged out by dumb glitches. So many dumb glitches. Characters T-posing, you know, just like weird collision or just dumb stuff like that. It's almost just a shame. So I'd like to essentially give it a score of some sort. And right now it's really hard because of all these problems. So I'd like to give it a theoretical score. If Cyberpunk was able to correct all these bugs and make it a very solid game start to finish, where you're noticing almost very little of these technical problems, for me, Cyberpunk sits at a 9.5 out of 10. Just for little small things that I wish were in the game that aren't. Just small things like being able to, you know, sit at one of the many food vendors maybe and, you know, have a bite to eat. I mean, this is an RPG. You should be able to, like, sit down and do things. Like, I remember when I played Fallout 3 for the first time, sitting down at one of those, like, random cafes and having the waitress come up to me and actually take my order was, like, mind-blowing. And it makes me sad that the game doesn't do small things like that. But for the most part, like, when you kind of really take the whole thing as a package and you just remove the glitches, you remove the bugs, and you just look at like what it could be, this is a game that's easily 9.5 out of 10. Like, atmosphere, characters, quality, story, graphics, all that stuff, definitely, when it's reached its full potential. Like, when the PS5 version is out, when the Xbox Series X version is out, when they've all been patched to hell and there's no more problems, this game is a true, honest-to-God masterpiece, and it could benefit from small little fixes. But as it is right now, it sits at an infuriating like 6.5 out of 10 just because of how much consistent issues there are, especially on the PS4 version, on console versions at that. Again, I can't speak for the PC version. I have no idea. I haven't played it. But yeah, it's essentially just a broken masterpiece. It is a fantastic game, and if you think you can sit through all these glitches and, you know, just kind of look past them as I have, then yeah, I would recommend getting it, playing it. You know, it's really good. It is worth your time. But if you can wait and you want to wait, I would highly recommend doing that too. I guess they got 2 big patches coming out in January and February, so hopefully that addresses a lot of the big issues. This is something where Cyberpunk deserves better than what it got at release, and I think we all know that, the developers included. So I'm excited to see what they do, and I'm really hoping that, you know, we will see their passion for this project kind of come through in many ways as it kind of goes on from here. I'm just hoping that Cyberpunk can kind of pull a No Man's Sky and kind of continue to survive after all this, because it is a really good game. It's just one that's plagued by bugs and glitches that need to be fixed. So yeah, that's my honest opinion on it. That is what I think. The short version is I'm having fun, and it's a bit of a piss off, but I can see the potential that lies on the horizon, and I'm excited for it. So hopefully you guys are too, and hopefully you make your own decision on whether or not you're going to pick up the game or just wait. Personally, I would probably wait for the majority of people. But yeah, that's my honest opinion on Cyberpunk 2077. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I'll be back with some new videos in the new year. So, have yourself a great holiday. And, yeah, I will see you guys all then. Bye-bye.